I'd barely gotten inside when Spencer appeared in the foyer, looking as cranky as always. Of course, because I could never just catch a break.
Were those your friends?
Yeah. I guess some people never get too old for this kind of thing. Of course, Corvin has the mentality of a 12-year-old, so...
Isn't that the one you like?
I don't like him. I mean, he's a friend. A friend! Like you and Ellie are friends. Oh wait, that's a bad example. Spencer smirked at me. Then seemed to catch himself. Ahem. I was suddenly struck by the fact that we were having an almost normal conversation. I think he realized it at the same time because it suddenly got awkward. Spencer frowned slightly and shuffled his feet the way he did when he didn't know what to say. For a long moment, I felt a powerful sense of loss. I wanted to be able to talk to him about everything and have him understand. I wanted my brother back.
Mom told me to take over for a while. You can go draw or do whatever.
I'm debating. I really want to stay. But I don't want to push it either. You know, like they're starting to have like more and more normal conversations. And I don't want to jeopardize that by pushing more than I should. I don't want to go to my room alone. I'm either going to stay with Bro or I'm going to go see Mom and Dad. I'm going to flip a coin. I'm bringing my coin into this. Heads, I'm going to overstep my boundaries with my brother and stay here. Tails, I'm going to make a hasty retreat and have some punch with my parents. Hiya! Tails it is. The coin hath spoken. Please don't lead me astray, coin. Right. Okay. I squeezed past him and headed to the kitchen.
Loser.
Hey!
Be careful tonight.
Why tonight? What do you know? Do you know more than I do? That is so not fair. I didn't know what he meant by that. Then again, when did I ever know what he meant by anything? Even so, that was a weird thing to say. He cares about you, though. I'm glad we made a hasty retreat. That was probably a good thing. I couldn't help but wonder just how much he'd managed to figure out already. I think I'll be fine. I didn't know what else to say. Spencer turned away from me as the doorbell rang again, and I left him in the foyer. So, was that Corvin's voice I heard earlier? Don't start. But yes, he and another friend stopped by to say hello. She was just giving me a knowing smile, and I was doing my best to ignore her. It's not like that. We're just friends. Friends. That's all. Uh-huh. Stop looking at me like that. He's nice. He is nice. And I'm not saying I like him. I am just acknowledging his niceness. That is all. Uh-huh. I sipped a cup of punch and stared out into the backyard, almost immediately losing myself in my thoughts. He's cute. Oh my god! Mom, again with that. What? He is. You don't think so? It's not that I don't think so. I mean, he is pretty. I stopped and glared at her. He is pretty. Like a princess. And now I'm going upstairs. I'm gonna drink my punch and have a cookie. No one can stop me. I grabbed a pumpkin cookie off the table and, punch in hand, left the kitchen immediately. I think you two look good together. I went straight up to my room quickly. Mom's already planning the wedding. I flopped on my bed, pulling a pillow over my face. I knew that at this point, Mom wasn't going to drop it. It wasn't that I didn't like him, but on top of everything else going on, I really did not need to start worrying about boy problems. I really didn't. I don't know when I nodded off, but I knew when I started dreaming. I had the usual sensation of my body being controlled by someone else. This time was different. I could almost feel this other me holding me back so they could stay in control. It felt like I was locked in a black room, beating on the walls but unable to escape. In the darkness, I started to doubt that I was actually dreaming, though I didn't know what else it could be. I knew I was walking, and I could almost feel the cool night air against my skin, but my senses were muffled. Aw, man. I could hear voices. I could hear my voice, raspy and strange, speaking a strange language I knew, but suddenly realized that I shouldn't. I was pretty sure that I was in the woods behind my house, and I was heading somewhere. Somewhere familiar. There was a pull in my gut that was dragging me forward, but I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go where my body was taking me. I could see the shadows of trees passing before my eyes, but the images were faint and blurry, like a veil was blocking me from the rest of the world. Bright spots of light flitted around me. Each bright spot had a pair of tiny wings, transparent and difficult to see in the halo of light around each one. Fairies. They were fairies. I remembered something Allie said about the borders of fairy expanding during Samhain, and suddenly it was like a bolt of lightning passed through my body. No. The night around me sharpened into focus. No! I couldn't go there. I wouldn't go there. That place wasn't where I wanted to go. There was an internal struggle from my body between me and the other me. The one that controlled my body when I was asleep. I didn't know who she was, but in that moment I was so certain she was there. And I knew I should know her. Somehow I managed to latch onto a tree as I passed, clinging to the rough bark as tightly as I could.
Let go! Let go!
It was my voice speaking, but it wasn't me.
No! Wake up!
The two of us, me and the intruder, fought for control. More and more of reality seeped into that locked room in my mind where I was still trapped. I could smell the damp, earthy bark, feel the freezing ground under my feet, but I was still struggling to make my body listen to me. It took every ounce of willpower not to let go of the tree.
It's time to go!
I tried to focus on the cold, tried to scrape my fingertips across the bark, desperate for even the smallest amount of physical sensation to anchor me back to the waking world. Give my body back! My fingers finally twitched, then moved across the bark. The other presence retreated. Tingling pain ricocheted through my body, and I was back in reality, bent over and gasping, gripping a tree for dear life. I was outside exactly where I expected to be. A harsh sob tore from my lips as I pressed my face to the scratchy bark. I'm not sleepwalking. This definitely isn't sleepwalking. I felt like I was going to throw up. The tiny voices I'd been hearing were still around me, though they weren't voices I could really hear with my ears. It was more like a strange awareness of them without actually hearing them. Now that I was back, though, I could make out what they were saying.
Give her back! It's not yours! Give it back!
I felt cold.
You promised!
They weren't speaking English. They were speaking the twin language Spencer and I had created when we were children. How can they possibly be speaking that? I shrieked in surprise as something yanked at my hair. The little lights swarmed around me, pint-sized hands tangled in my hair, yanking, pulling, and tying it in knots. Tiny fingernails scratched in my face as the voices raged at me.
Give it back!
The fairies were suddenly poking and prodding all over my body. They flitted all around me, making me dizzy. I swatted at them, staggering away from the trees as panic started to take over. I had to get away from them, but I wasn't sure what to do. There were so many. I don't know what to do here. What's the scenarios? If I run, I have no idea how far into the woods I am. I could run into the very place I'm trying to avoid. If I stand my ground and fight, I don't know what I'm going to do against these things. Scream for help, I might attract more fairies and possibly other things that want to eat my face. None of these sound like particularly good options. I think this is my best bet out of the three, assuming my assumptions are correct. Oh boy. Well, we'll see if I get a bad ending or not. Let's go. I didn't know where I was or how far I was from my house this time, but I stumbled back the direction I thought I'd come from, trying to fight them off.
Give it back! Liar! You promised!
The voices were shrieking, and they were so thick around me that their light dazzled my eyes, blotting out everything else. Over and over, they screamed one word that I realized must be a name. Rule. Leave me alone! My voice was hoarse, ragged, and choked with tears. Why? Why is this happening? I couldn't shake them off or frighten them away. I swatted wildly at the air, my hand making contact with one of the sprites, sending it plummeting to the ground. Unable to run, I decided I had to stand my ground and fight them off. Knocking one of them from the air gave me courage. There were a lot of them, but they were tiny, and they didn't seem to be doing much more than scratching and pulling my hair. I could fight back. Get away from me! I picked a fallen branch off the ground and swept it through the air, sending a shower of wet leaves everywhere. It made contact with several of the fairies. They scattered, giving me a few minutes reprieve. Oh, thank goodness for the crow. Suddenly, I heard the jarring sound of a crow overhead. Desperate, I looked up and saw a familiar white crow in a nearby tree. It was almost shining in the dark. Corvin! I didn't know why I saw the crow and immediately thought of him. Maybe because you saw the bird fly out of his grimoire. I staggered toward it as it swooped down to me, letting out another harsh call. The fairy scattered. I took the opportunity to run, limping through the trees and scraggly underbrush. Above me came the flapping of wings as the crow kept pace through the branches. The fairies weren't scared off for long. They were back in a few minutes, their tiny voices ringing in my head. One sprite flew close to my face, clawing at my eyes. I swatted it away, but the bright light blinded me temporarily. Spot swimming before my eyes, I fell forward, only just managing to catch myself. Something sharp cut deep into one hand, and I sobbed, clutching it to my stomach as I tried to beat the fairies off with my other arm.
Nora! Nora!
Someone's there? Here! I'm here! I cried out weakly, unsure who was looking for me. I tried to get to my feet, but dozens of tiny hands yanked back.
Thief! Thief!
I screamed again and tried to beat them off. I wasn't sure what happened next. Oh, thank goodness. There was a hot rush of air, and suddenly everything smelled like lightning. The fairies scattered, but didn't go far. I could still see them zipping between the trees. Their angry voices dulled, but didn't vanish.
Nora! Just hang on!
I struggled to pick myself up. Danny and Corvin. I couldn't see them yet, but I recognized the voices. They were getting closer.
There was someone else there.
Go check it out. I'll help her.
I heard footsteps running off and scrubbed at my eyes, but the tears wouldn't stop. And Corvin was suddenly next to me doing more magic. The crack of it was loud in my ears as he cast the spell. His magic was always more showy than Allie's. I squeezed my eyes shut, covering my ears. The fairies scattered again, but I could still hear their insistent voices. Thief! Thief! I didn't know what they thought I stole. Oh, dang! Wow! You look great. Man, you and Corvin can be the white-haired beauties. Or perhaps I did, but didn't want to give voice to that thought. As I clung to myself, trying to just keep a grasp on my own emotions, I realized something was wrong and caught a lock of long white hair that was hanging in front of my eyes. White? I clawed at my head, frantically pulling more of the long hair down in front of my eyes. Why is it white? Nothing made sense anymore. Well, the other you, Rule, that you've been painting, has white hair. I didn't understand anything that was happening. I wrapped my arms around my body again, sobbing hoarsely. What's happening to me? What is this? Before my eyes, red faded into the white like a stain. I squeezed my eyes shut as hot tears seeped out and slid down my face. It wasn't like in books or movies where magic was fun and simply led you into adventures that always had happy endings. This was scary. It was taking over my life and I didn't know how to stop it. Oh! It's back. I crouched down, cold and crying for what seemed like ages before Corvin came to me. He carefully draped his coat over my shoulders and wound his scarf around my neck. He looked so different without a scarf. Before I could react, he wrapped both arms around me, crooning softly under his breath.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm here.
I couldn't find my voice to say anything. I huddled against him, freezing, crying, and worrying that my injured hand was getting blood on his coat. He always showed up when I needed him. Why is he always here? And if he kept doing this, I was going to start expecting him to always be there for me. He stroked my back gently. Shh. His kindness just made me cry harder. After Kara turned on me, and then Spencer turned on me, Allie was the only one I'd ever relied on even a little. I clung to Corvin tightly, burying my face in his shoulder. He was an idiot. He was goofy and an accident-prone airhead, and he kept things from me even when I felt I needed to know them. But... was it okay to rely on him just a little for now? I finally looked up at him, tears still freezing on my cheeks. Corvin's hand reached to wipe them away. At the warmth of his hands, I closed my eyes and let out a long, shaky breath. I felt his lips suddenly brush against my forehead.
I'm glad you're safe.
By that time, I had finally calmed down enough to start feeling embarrassed by having lost it like that. I think you were entitled. I heard the sound of Danny coming back toward us and pulled away from Corvin, hastily wiping at my face.
Whoever it was is gone. We didn't manage to catch sight of them, and they were downwind, so I'm not sure who it was. Definitely not one of ours, though. I'll see if they left some kind of aura trail later. Whoa, what happened? Nora, you're bleeding!
I didn't trust myself to speak yet. My throat was aching. I just shook my head because it was all I could manage.
Is she okay?
No, I wasn't okay. I was definitely not okay. But I was better. A bit.
I think she's just a bit shaken.
Understatement of the year right there. Elliot made his way to us, face extremely worried.
Where are you hurt? I smell blood.
Everywhere. But... my hand... I barely managed to croak the words out as I held up my hand. My voice was raspy and hoarse. It was because of the screaming, I knew, but I didn't sound like me. Corvin pulled his scarf from around my neck and wrapped it tightly around my injured hand.
We should get you to the club room for now.
I have to get back home.
It's okay. We'll take care of that. It's not a good idea to go home right now. Your injuries need to be treated.
I shook my head vehemently. I need to go home. I can hide a hurt hand. Danny crouched next to me and placed one of his hands gently on my head as he peered down at me. His eerie gold eyes glinted in the moonlight. I had to repress a shudder at how inhuman they looked.
Nora, I don't think you realize how bad you look. Those fairies did a number on you. Your face is all scratched up. You won't be able to hide that from your family.
It'll be worse if they wake up and I'm not there. I struggled to my feet again. You don't understand. I can't worry them with this kind of... My legs wobbled and I headed straight for the ground again. Corvin caught me and held me up. I couldn't make them worry about me like this again. Not again. I couldn't put the whole family in turmoil because of this. Look, just... Corvin will say, he snuck you out for a Halloween party, and he's really sorry. You should have asked your parents' permission first. But your mom will be thrilled. It'll all work out.
Let's just head back for now. We'll decide what to do when we get there.
I nodded numbly.
I'll carry you back. And I don't want to hear arguments. You can barely stand, much less walk.
I like that we have a vampire, a werewolf, and a wizard, and the least strong out of all three of these is the one that's carrying her. But I appreciate your gallantry, sir.
Yeah, your hand definitely isn't the only thing bleeding right now.
Corvin crouched in front of me, and as awkward as it was, I quickly slipped my arms through the sleeves of his jacket and climbed on his back. Aw, that's nice. Normally I wouldn't have been so obedient about that, but I was just too tired to argue. He seemed so slight that I was surprised at how easily he lifted me. Nice. Danny and Elliot led the way back through the woods. Danny was in the lead, then Elliot was just in front of us, directing Corvin where to step. Apparently, werewolves and vampires have excellent night vision. Who would have guessed? Corvin picked his way through the underbrush with surprising ease, even with me clinging to him like an undersized hypothermic gorilla. I just held on, grateful for his body heat. I'm sorry. I must be heavy. And I stole your coat.
You're not heavy at all. And don't worry about the coat. I feel like I'm wrapped in a Nora coat at the moment. It's nice and warm.
You are so weird. And that is horror movie creepy.
Sorry.
I was mumbling into his shoulder, grateful for how he was trying to at least make me smile, even if it didn't work. Almost unconsciously, I tightened my arms around his shoulders. It wasn't long before the others led us to a little trail scratched through the trees, probably made by deer or something, but walking was much easier now regardless. Not for me, of course, since I wasn't, but for my beast of burden anyway. Poor Corvin.
It's not far now.
I ran quite a long way.
You did.
He was silent for a long moment, and I could practically feel the unasked question lingering in the air.
Do you know where you were going?
I don't know. I trailed off, squeezing Corvin more tightly. I think they were taking me to Fairy or whatever. They kept calling me a thief. I don't know why. Even as I said that, I knew it wasn't true. The more I thought about it, the more it was obvious. They said, give her back, right? They were talking about the other me, the one that kept stealing my body at night and wandering in the woods. I shivered and clung even more tightly to Corvin.
Don't worry about it. We'll figure out what's going on.
Yeah. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the truth anymore. Instead, I tried to shut those thoughts away by wondering how I would pay them back for this. How I would say thank you. How I could possibly express how glad and relieved I was that they'd come to my rescue again. How to apologize because Corvin had to keep saving me. The trail led us back to the paved path alongside the road. I could just make out the shadows of darkened houses through the thin veil of trees. I closed my eyes.
Lights are still off at your place, so I doubt anyone realizes you've gone out.
He gave Corvin a sidelong look.
What's the plan?
My mind started going fuzzy again, this time with shock and exhaustion. I thought I heard Corvin say something about taking care of me and that Danny should check in with someone. It was really the last thing I remember before everything went completely black.